Welcome to the Sonical.ly podcast, where music creators educate music creators. I'm Gina.
And I'm Elmo.
In today's episode, we are thrilled to host a dynamic and multifaceted artist, SadBoi. Woohoo!
Woo!
Born Ebony Jade Cato Ogero, I hope I said that right, in Toronto and now based in Atlanta, SadBoi has quickly become a distinctive voice in the music industry.
Her versatile style spans dancehall, R&B, hip-hop, reggae, and pop, showcasing her ability to craft deeply personal yet universally relatable music. Lyrically, SadBoi is unflinchingly honest and provocative, which she first showcased on the 2021 mixtape Good Dick and Weed. This year, she showcased the singles Gyal Clown, Lie Lie Lie, and Slide, which ultimately led to a co-sign from none other than Drake.
In today's conversation, we'll dive into SadBoi's creative process, the inspirations behind her poignant lyrics, and the stories that have shaped her music. We'll also discuss her experiences navigating the music industry and her approach to mental health and what she envisions for the future of her career. So without further ado, let's welcome the incredibly talented SadBoi to the show. Woo!
Hi, guys.
SadBoi!
Yay!
Thank you for the kind words. That's so crazy. I didn't know you guys knew like that much. That's so funny.
Oh man, we had to do it. We had to dig deep.
That's so funny. I love
yeah,
it.
we've been following your career up to this point. You've got some legitimate heaters in your catalog, and we are just excited for you and where you're at in your journey because your music is so unique, and we just wanted to learn more about you, really. I'm wondering if we could rewind the clock back to the beginning. Did you grow up with music in your life?
Well, you want to know what's so interesting? No one in my family did music. Like no one in my family did music. Everyone, like my family is like a lot of females. So I have like a lot of female cousins, a lot of aunts, and like everyone plays sports. So like for me growing up, like everyone was like into sports, like into like basketball and stuff like that. And I was like the only one that was not. Like I still played sports, but it was something that like I hated. It's like I really disliked it. I was more so like into like dance, arts, like painting, photography was like a big thing for me in school. Um, Anything that was like artistic, I was into. So I was like the complete opposite. So it's pretty interesting to say like I didn't grow up with like any music influences like in my family, but I did have like a lot of music lovers. So like, like my grandparents loved like reggae and soca. My dad loved hip hop. My mom loved R&B. So I was fortunate enough to like grow up in like a music held household. Like it was something that music was just always on, always playing. But aside from that, no. Like I was like the only one that was even into art in general.
That's so fascinating because your music has so many sounds and influences interweaved into it.
Mhm.
I wonder what were some of the sonics playing around the house when you were growing up. Like you mentioned reggae and R&B, hip hop, and all that, but who were some of the names? And yeah,
Um, so when I could think, definitely Barrington. Barrington was like a really, really big one. Bears Hammond was a big one. My grandma loved like my grandma's native, so she loves like old like folk music, country music as well. So like I grew up listening to like a lot of like Etta James, um, Keisha Cole, Biggie Smalls, um, who else? Cause Nas, like literally, it keeps going. Like
yeah.
Soca, Michelle Montano, like it's just like all over the place. But yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird because even now, like when I go through like my library, like I'll go from like listening to like R&B to like Etta James or like Skeeter Davis, and it's just like a weird like thing. And my friends will be like, "Okay, take the aux from her because what's happening?" There's like so many different. But yeah, that's like what I grew up listening to.
Going from listening to that music, really, when you're listening as a child,
Mhm.
you're pretty much absorbing all of that energy and all of those formats of music. I'm wondering when you realized that music was a part of you where you could start creating your own stuff with that.
I think like when I actually had started making music. I apologize about my dogs if you hear my dogs. I have like a little.
Oh no, I can barely hear
Okay, good. I have like a Yorkie, and
it.
he's like crazy. He's like insane. Um,
Oh, sounds cute.
I think for me, like it's interesting because I always had like Caribbean influences in my music, but I think when I got to a place where I was like, oh, like I really could like incorporate the sounds that like I grew up to, like so the fact that like I do love Etta James and I do love like Skeeter Davis, like I think I got to that point where I kind of did like that whole rebrand thing where like I kind of just felt like I was able to do what I really loved and experiment and not feel like I had to be put in a box. You know what I mean? I think that was like, and it's very recent. Like it hasn't even been like 2 years, you know, of me
Really?
figuring that out. So it's been like a journey, but I think I'm just now at a place where I'm like, oh, like I can do other things. It's just like more so about being strategic with it. But
Hmm.
that was like when I was like, okay, I could actually take what I learned like growing up or what I loved growing up and make it me like my own.
Do you remember the first song you ever made?
Uh, yes, I do. I
Can you tell
do.
me a little bit about it?
Um, okay, so basically, I remember I had, okay, so I was doing YouTube covers. I was like, I would have been like 12 or 13. I was doing YouTube covers, and I remember my mom looked online like a studio for me to go and record in. And at the studio, the guy was like, "Okay, like I'll just like do a song for you." Like, I don't know if you remember, but like back in the days, like they used, I don't even know if they still do it, but they used to do like packages. Like, okay, like it'd be, $300, and we'll like give you a song, and then you can record the song and like stuff like that. So like my mom ended up doing the package, and they wrote a song for me. Like I met with them, and the song was called "Pop Princess." And I was too scared to say anything in that moment, but I hated the song.
That
And
doesn't sound like you.
no, I hated the song so much. And I remember when my mom was driving home, I just kept crying. I was like, I don't like the song. And I went home and I ended up writing my own song, and it was called Puppy Love. And mind you, I was like 12, 13 years old, and I went back and I recorded the song. So the first song I wrote myself was actually called Puppy Love. Um, yeah. But the first song I actually got that would have been mine was Pop Princess, which I didn't like.
Okay, so Pop Princess, was that all done by those producers that own the studio?
Yeah.
Like you didn't have any part of the beat making or the lyric writing or the melody making?
No. And Puppy Love, I did. Puppy Love, I remember the producer that was there was like, okay, you know what? Like, I'll just give her beats. And he gave me beats, and I went home and I wrote it. And I went back in and recorded.
Can you tell me a little bit about like the inspiration behind Puppy Love?
Um, I definitely had a crush on that boy. It definitely stemmed from like a crush. Because the song was basically me talking about like the crush I had. Like it was just like some like middle school stuff. Like, oh, I like this boy, but do I really like him? Like it was literally just about me like running home from school, like waiting to get his phone call or like his text message. It was so like I mean it was cute. But it literally was like what I would have been like going through at that time, like experiencing like my first crush at like 13 years old.
But fast forward to this point now, you have really made a name for yourself, even having your own fan club, your own movement, people not only in Toronto, but like all over the world really supporting your movement. My question is, what were some of the hardest moments in your journey to becoming a renowned songwriter artist as you are? And how did you overcome these hardships?
Um, I think for me, like the hardest thing for me, and it sounds so like, it sounds like really like when I say it, but I think the hardest thing for me was trusting myself. Like I think that was like a really big thing for me. Like I think, like I had periods where it's like, you know, I would write songs or I would like do songs and like I would release them and I would see that people would love it. But then I would be like distracted by like people on the other side saying, well, you need to make music like this or you need to do something like this. And it's like, and not trusting myself or like what the people were telling me that they liked because I felt like I didn't necessarily know. and like the people that were telling me that I should do something else knew more than me. When in reality, it's like I'm learning now where it's like everything that is coming my way is literally just because I'm solely being myself. Like I'm not trying to be someone else. I'm not listening to what anyone else is saying. And I'm really big on like, listening. I think it's like I don't know if it's like a Caribbean thing, but like growing up in a Caribbean household, like it's just like a respect thing. Like if someone older than you says something, like you take it in and you're like, okay, like, and you do something with it. But I'm learning when it comes to like my music and my craft, I take everyone's opinion with a grain of salt because there is some truth to it and there's something to take from everyone's advice, but that doesn't mean that you should switch your whole thing because especially if something is working for you. So I think it's really important just to pay attention to everything, and that's something I wasn't doing before. Like I would just do something and it would go over my head until I listened to someone else. I'm like, wait, why didn't that work for me when I felt something different the last time? So I think that was like the biggest thing for me, like trusting myself.
Yeah, that's very common in the Korean culture as well,
Hmm.
where like older people, they tell you something and you have to, respect what they say. And there's even a certain way you can only talk to older people, like very formally.
Hmm.
Um, and it's very hard to stand your ground and step up to that. A lot of times sometimes a lot of maneuvering and stuff like that, but like yeah, Gina agrees. So I guess my question is, where did you get the courage and conviction to just block all of the noise and just sort of be like, you know what? I respect that person. I respect who he is or she is in their opinion, but I just got to do me.
Mm, if I'm being honest with you, when I had wrote Slide, which would have been, I wrote Slide in November. So when I had wrote Slide, because at that time, like I'm just gonna like go into it a little bit, but like when I had changed my name, like my name change was actually because, I was dating someone and he had ended up like cheating on me and he had got the girl pregnant and I found out on Instagram. And it was like such a bad timing for me as far as like, like I just felt like I wasn't in a good place music wise. I just felt like I was giving so much of my time to this person. And I just kind of backtracked and I was like, okay, you know what, let me rebrand everything. Like, this is what I stand behind. This is what I want to do and stuff like that. So I kept making songs about him, but I was too scared to say his name. So I just said SadBoi because he's also an artist. And I was listening back to my music. I'm like, oh, I should call myself SadBoi because I think there's something really powerful in this and something that I could do. And like, yes, I'm hurt right now, but it's like something that I could flip in the end as I continue to heal and like, all these things. But for me, it was like I had wrote Potential and I did Potential and Potential did really well in Europe. Really, 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 really well. And everyone just seemed to love Potential. Like Potential was just a song that everyone was just like, that's like the one. And I remember following up to Potential in my head. I was like, okay, like this is what I think we should do next or whatever the case may be. And I ended up taking like advice from like others and I went completely different than what I felt I should have done. And I remember people like did not like it. I'm gonna be so honest, like people did not like it. I remember like looking at my phone, looking at the comments and reading the comments and I was like, oh, like you guys don't like this, like at all, like what I'm like making. And I myself wasn't even sure of me dropping those songs. And I love those songs, but I just don't think it was like the right time following like Potential. And it was like again a situation where people were like, you need to make a song like this, you need to make a better Potential, you need to make a song like Potential, you need to have the island influence, you need to use your accent, like what was it that you were thinking about when you wrote Potential? And it was just very much like to the point where like I went through writer's block. Like I was in such a bad place. I was really depressed. Like it just felt like everything was just hitting me at once. And my producer ended up sending me, and he's someone that I've known since I was like 15, and he's from Brazil, but he lives in Paris. And he sent me a pack of beats. And I just went in the WhatsApp, my WhatsApp messages, and I pulled up the beat, and the first beat was the Slide beat. And I had went in my washroom and I just recorded. Like I just started writing the song and recorded on my other phone, but I didn't overthink it. I more so did it to like uplift myself, to make myself feel good. And that was like the moment for me where it like clicked because it felt so good to do it. But I'm like, I was so scared to even release it because I'm like, everyone wants me to do this. Like, I don't like it. And I remember everyone was like, Slide needs to come out. And I remember how good I felt writing Slide. But when I recorded it, even the day I recorded Slide, I'm like, the song is horrible. Like, I literally was talking so bad on myself. And like to the point where like I started feeling like, oh, like what I'm doing isn't good enough. I'm not a good enough writer. Like, like maybe like I shouldn't be doing this. And then everyone was like, oh, drop Slide. And the minute I had dropped Slide, everything just changed. Like as far as like everyone's opinions, well, I mean people still had opinions, but like even like the people like that were listening to Slide, or the people that came across it, it was a lot bigger than what I had with potential. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, I think I'm like understanding things and seeing things a bit differently now. And that's kind of like the moment I got to that place. And it's so crazy because it took like a year of me even changing my name for me to even get to that place.
After Slide, how has your life changed in terms of, you put out the song and then such positive feedback all across the board. You've relocated to Atlanta. Yeah, like what's going on now?
Well, I'm thinking about moving back home to Toronto, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, because I love Atlanta. I think it's like a great place to be. I think it was like the smartest move I could have made for like my music, just to kind of like, step outside Canada and just network and stuff like that. Um, but Toronto's always going to be home for me, so I'm definitely thinking about going back to Toronto. But as far as like how do I feel things have changed, what's so crazy? I haven't really had a chance to like really take anything in because I still feel like I'm like in the same place. Like for me, it's like I don't know. Like I guess I can say like I feel a bit different as far as like like my interactions with people, like how that may go. But like for me, as much as like I'm present like with like my friends and like my family and stuff like that, I'm still like thinking like my end goal. And like I think like I don't know what it is. It's such a weird habit, but I just keep thinking about my end goal, and I think like that's like what keeps me like going. Like I'm like, okay, this is like really cool, but next. So like for me already, it's like even though I dropped this project, I'm already thinking like, okay, what's the next song gonna sound like? How could like I elevate, this sound? So I haven't had a chance to really take anything, and I'm just like, okay, how can I make this bigger and better to get closer to my goals? So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I probably should take a step back and probably take everything in.
In terms of goals, do you have specific milestones that you're shooting for? Like, do you like try to manifest like 5 years, Grammy, world tour after, I drop the next album? I don't know. Like, do you have these kind of like checkpoints that you think of in your head?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I always say, like, the best way for me to put it is, like, I always want to be the biggest pop star. And I know that sounds so, like, generic because it's like, okay, but, like, everything that comes with that. And, like, I really want to, like, be able to create this space where people are like, oh, like, I love SadBoi because SadBoi, created this world, like, to kind of allow us to be ourselves, or like like have emotions and not feel afraid to like one day be in love and then the next day want like revenge and not feel crazy for those things. Like I've always wanted to just create that space for people. And also another thing is like when I look at what even like the weekend and Drake were able to do for like Canada, being from Canada, and just seeing how they came out of Canada. I just don't think that there are any females that have necessarily like done it to that like level, and like that's like what I want to do. That's like where like my goal is, and like I feel like when I think of being like the biggest pop star, it's like people would also think of Toronto or Canada.
Mm.
So like it's just like small little things, and I feel like every day like I'm working towards it, but it's just like milestones and milestones. But I still feel like I have ways to go, but I'm gonna get there. So
Yeah, I believe it. Earlier, we had mentioned Drake
Mhm.
and the compliments that you received from him.
Yeah.
How did that whole situation happen?
Um, it really started with Slide. I had dropped Slide, and I don't know, Slide just felt so different for me. I think like just like everyone's reaction to it, especially from like where I'm from and stuff. And I just had like a weird feeling. Like, I mean, like, you know, OVO 40 reached out to me from Slide, and he like gave me like my flowers and stuff like that, which like I really appreciated. So like it was getting like a buzz. Like there was like a few people, like it wasn't even out for a week yet. And there was like a few people that were already like, you know, paying attention to it and supporting it. And then I didn't even think Slide when Drake had initially followed me. I don't think Slide was even out for like 3 days. And then he had messaged me and he had told me like, you know, like he was like, Slide is fire, but I don't even have to tell you that. And I was like, oh, like thank you. And, you know, like I had the chance to like sit with him and just like talk to him about like music, and he gave me like a bunch of advice. And you know, like I really like took his advice, like honestly and truly, because hearing his feedback on the music, and he really took it as like a listener. Like, okay, like when he asked me like how I felt about Slide, and like when he expressed why he felt like Slide was going to be such a big thing for me, he he broke it down into like pieces where it's like, oh, I could see why people would like it because of those things. And it was things I didn't think about. And those are things now when it's like I'm creating music, and it's like it's a thing that comes natural to me, but I didn't necessarily think about those things like, oh, people may actually care about like, you know, tempo, or, you know, like certain things that I say like back home that I should put in my music, because like it's like, oh, like I connect with her because like she speaks like this, or like what does that mean? Is that where she speaks, like that's how she speaks, like from where she's from? And I didn't really think about that. And when I thought about Slide, like Slide had those elements. And he was like, I think you should do a whole project around Slide. And I already had a whole project done. And I was like, okay. And like, mind you, the project didn't sound anything like Slide, because I felt like the first project that I had dropped as SadBoi should be an introduction to who SadBoi is and where got my name from. And I really based it around that time for me, which was like a really like bad time. But I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, let me ride this Slide wave and ride the wave as far as like, you know, like it still is me. It's still where I'm from. Like when you hear Bear Chat, you think of Canada, you think of Toronto. The songs, like, you know, it's very worldly. And I feel like that was like a great representation of where I'm from, it being like a melting pot of like what we eat, the music we listen to, the people we meet, um, the slang. Like there was just so many different elements, but I felt like it was me in like a time of like, you know, having fun and just being like a girl, you know, and not necessarily like dealing with my problems. And I feel like that's where I was at that point. Like when I had created Slide, like I wasn't necessarily trying to deal with anything. I was just trying to feel good and make myself feel good. And I think that's what made it so special. Because that project was really for me, but
Yeah.
it ended up being affirmations for people and other like females and stuff like that. When I wrote all those songs on the project to make myself feel good because I felt like shit. But yeah, like it's just so interesting. I just took everything that he said and I just ran with it, and I'm just gonna keep running with it. Like even when I think about like the next project, it's like I'm thinking of like the things that he told me and like the advice that he gave, and I'm
Mm.
like, okay, this is how I can elevate it, you know? So yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, because like there's a guy who I caught on to as a producer, Nana Rogues, who also produced Drake's song, uh, na, 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 na. You know that song.
Great, do it
Na,
again.
na, 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 na.
Uh,
It's the one where he sings, listen, da, da,
uh,
da, da, da,
Listen,
listen.
passionate from miles away.
Passion
Yes,
fruit,
passion
yes,
fruit.
yes. There's some beats in his catalog that are very sort of similar, and he has that kind of UK sound.
Hmm.
Were any of these guys influences, like when you were kind of like coming up with stuff, like these guys like Stormzy, Section Boys, Skepta, like any of these guys like kind of influence the work?
You know, so interesting. I feel like Toronto and the UK is so similar.
Hmm.
As far as like, like our slang, the way we dress, the way we speak, the way we carry ourselves, like even like as far as like the culture, I just feel like it's very similar to Toronto, like just being like a melting pot of people from all over. So I feel like it kind of like when I'm here, like when I listen back to my songs, I can see why some people, I'm so sorry, like my dog Skilly wants to come in
It's
here
okay.
with me, but I could see why people would be like, oh, like it kind of gives like a UK vibe because there are similarities. Um, and like like in between like the both those places, but I'm gonna be so honest with you, I wasn't necessarily thinking of that. I wasn't like, I mean, I love UK music, like I love all the people that you listed, but like when I wrote I wrote that project within like a week, and I literally took the advice that I was given and I just ran home and I just went in my washroom and just wrote. And it was all like a feeling for me and how I wanted to feel. So I didn't really think of like, you know, no one really inspired me other than like that conversation that I had to be like, you know what you're doing, like stick to that. But I could see where people get like the UK um, uh, reference, or not reference, but the,
Comparison.
yeah, I could see where people would get that from.
That makes me love your story even more, that it was just sort of like a
Yeah,
feeling, a
I
vibe, and you
wasn't
just went with
listening.
it.
Yeah, I didn't listen
Yeah.
to anything. Yeah, because it was such a short window. Like I had to go home and like within like a week and turn that project
Hmm.
in. So like I didn't really have much time to really like think even. I was just like, okay, and I just kept going and going. If anything, it was more so like me inspired by like what I was going through or like really writing music for myself.
I'm wondering, now that you're in Atlanta, we know that Atlanta is a very sort of trap oriented scene. You bringing this flavor from Canada, do you feel like you're understood in Atlanta?
I feel like in Atlanta people are really open. I think people are like, oh, this is different. This is cool. Where are you from? Like I want to hop on this wave. I feel like I've gotten like so many different people from like America, especially, be like, oh, like I want to hop on something of yours. Like especially like artists, like they'll just like message me and be like, oh, let's do a song, and I'm like, okay, and they'll be like, send me like your type of vibe, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how that's gonna sound, but okay. So I think people are just like they're really like accepting and just like open to it, which I think is really cool.
I only have a couple more questions
Hmm.
left in this main question section. I want to talk a little bit about your fan base.
Hmm.
Who are the crybabies, and what does it mean to be a crybaby?
Well, so basically, the crybabies are, I feel like the crybabies are a really good representation of like me as a person because they be so feisty. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, when I read comments, like when I go through my comments or like the DMs, I'm like, oh my God, you guys have like your attitude is so bad. And it just reminds me so much of like myself because it's like, I don't know. I just feel like they're like the a representation of like how I am as like a person. Um, so the crybabies are, unapologetically themselves, which I love. They stand behind like what they stand behind. I feel like really passionate. And like I said, like a little feisty. But I also think, what makes someone a crybaby is the fact that, they're not afraid to be themselves. And I think like nowadays, like people feel like they have to look a certain way. They have to act a certain way. They have to dress a certain way. And it's like, no, like being a crybaby is literally like waking up in the morning and being like, I want to wear this today. Whether it be a mini skirt, whether it be baggy jeans and a oversized hoodie, whatever it is, like, and you stand behind that and you walk out the door. So to me, that's what being a crybaby is. It's never feeling like, you know, I have to be someone else or I have to look like this to fit in because it's like, no matter what everyone else says, it's like I'm doing this because it makes me happy. And that's what a crybaby is. And I love that because there are days where it's like, I feel like sometimes I may wake up and feel insecure or feel like I don't like belong or like I don't like fit in or it's like, damn, I see like someone looking like this. Like maybe I should get my boobs done because I don't have my boobs done and I'm small. But then it's like I'll post something on Instagram and see someone who's just like being themselves. And they'll be like, I love your music, and and that will uplift me. So I honestly think a crybaby is just someone who's just a baddie, but it's just like a baddie in their own way. A baddie is just someone that stands behind themselves, and that's what like a crybaby is. So yeah, I feel like that's
I love
it.
that.
Yeah.
Can I be a
Yeah,
crybaby?
you could be.
Gina, do you want to be a crybaby?
You guys can definitely be.
I think I already am a crybaby, so
And
I'd be bopping.
I also think too, crybabies aren't afraid to like, you know, show their emotions. Like if they're sad, they're sad. Like I don't think it's never, the best way to put it, we aren't like trying to be cool. Like there's no such thing as being too cool. It's like I feel this way, this is how I feel. So yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
And you had a pretty unique upbringing and growing up in school. Like
Hmm.
you were kind of like the one that was sometimes bullied as a result of
Yeah.
thinking different. Do you find that experience brought you this perspective of, hey, if you're an other, you're a crybaby too,
Yeah.
right? Like, and don't worry about what other people think.
Yeah. I mean like being a crybaby, I was gonna bring that up, but I was like, I don't know, but I being a crybaby really is like it reminds me of so much of like what I went through when I was like younger, like being bullied so bad because it's like I was just myself and I got picked on for being myself. But at the same time, it's like that never changed my view on me as far as like waking up in the morning and wanting to still wear that and go to school. And I think there's just something so powerful in just being yourself. And I think like at that time when I was younger, I didn't really understand it until now that I'm older. And I was like, why did I do those things? Like if I was getting bullied so bad because maybe someone didn't like how I was dressed or how I looked, why did I still feel the need to like wake up the next day and put something very similar on or like still dress like as crazy as they felt I did? I just think it just boiled down to because it made me happy. So like it's just like about like even now like when I think about like crybabies is like creating that safe space. And I feel like artists that did that for me, especially growing up, was like Nicki Minaj. I feel like Nicki Minaj did a really good job. Like she created that safe space where it's like no one could tell me anything because it's like Nicki Minaj created the space for like the bars where it's just like we felt like we could do anything, like we were unstoppable, like. So that's like really powerful to me. So definitely like bullying played like a big part in that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's something that anyone should experience, but it played like a big part in like a lot of the things that I do now.
Oh
That's
my God. I just imagined, sorry for butting in, I just imagined you doing something with Nicki
And
Minaj and it was just like instant jackpot. Like, oh my God, this is such a vibe. Like, holy moly, moly. Like, it would be like, I don't know. It would just be incredible, I think, if you ever did anything
her.
with her. Oh
She's like
man,
literally
the
like my favorite
vibe.
artist. That was like the first album that my parents bought me. Like my mom bought that.
Nicki Minaj. Nicki
I'm like,
Minaj. Come on.
I honestly think like
we,
that's like the one person, and I always say this, and like everyone always laughs at me, but like that's like the one person. The day I meet Nicki Minaj, I think I'm probably going to faint. I promise you, or I'm gonna
oh
cry
my.
because I love her so much, and I don't think anyone has that hold on me. But there's just something about Nicki Minaj where I'm like, I can't.
Oh, I know what you mean. I can't wait till you guys both get together and do something crazy, and Sonically will be right there behind
She's
your
probably
back.
gonna be like, "What's going
Oh
on right
Lord.
now?" She's probably gonna
No, she'll love you.
I hope.
She'll love you. Yeah. All right.
But it's
Sorry.
so awesome how you kind of model yourself after a lot of what she did for you in terms of
Yeah.
opening up a community for people that felt different. And you know, because she's so unique in her own right, where like
Oh yeah.
she's just like out there, but at the same time in that space people find so much comfort
Right.
in what she does. And
Yeah.
it's helped you become who you are as well, and now you're doing that. It's kind of like what we're kind of doing too, is like passing on
Yeah.
for the next generation to make them feel that, and make them let them know that they'll be okay, as long as
Yeah.
they be themselves essentially. And not be ashamed of that, and be empowered by that,
Yeah.
So love your dog, by the way.
Mwah.
He's he's
Puppy.
honestly he's a they told me he was like a Yorkie Chihuahua mix. He's like about to be 2, but he's clearly not a Yorkie.
I love it.
He's like 40 pounds, but I think he has like pit in him. I have to do like a DNA test because he has a his trainer's like he's giving like pit beagle. Like I don't know what this is, but he,
He is so adorable, though. Oh
he's a
my lord! I was like, puppy. Anyways,
Perfect transition to our next last question of the segment.
mm.
What advice would you give to young artists who look up to you and aspire to make their mark as an accomplished artist, songwriter, performer like yourself?
well, a few things. I think always remember the reason why you started doing it. And when you go back to that reason, there's there's a reason behind everything. And when you go back to the reason why you started doing something that you love, it's easy for you to start trusting yourself. And because for you to create art, you have to love it. You know what I mean? Like for you to create your best art, it's something that you put your all into, and you don't overthink it. It should come naturally, but it's still something that is thoughtful. It's thought out. And I think when you go back to why you started doing something, um, it just will change your mindset on everything, and it'll also allow you to trust yourself. And also, I think another thing that I would tell artists: never be afraid. Sorry, Skilly's like up here, like knocking over my computer. Never be afraid of telling people no. There's nothing wrong with saying no. I'm learning that now. And sometimes you say no more than yes. Like in a lot of like, in a lot of like scenarios and like a lot of different like situations, you will say no because it's just may not be for you. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if you say no to one opportunity that you feel like may not be for you, the next opportunity that comes around, or the time after that, is going to be 10 times, 10 times greater, and even be more like, it'll make more sense. So never feel afraid of saying no. So yeah, that would be like the best advice. I feel like that's something that I needed to hear, because like when I started, I just kept saying yes. And I just had like the runaround, like even up to like me dropping my project, I just said yes to everything because I felt like people knew. And then I forgot like why I was doing music, and like what even started SadBoi. Like where did this like even come from? Like what was I even trying to do, so I think it's really important to ask yourself that, and also recognize that it's not bad to say no.
I think we're now ready to move on to the rapid fire round.
Thank you so much again. All right, so I'm going to move on to the last part of our segment here, and it's called Gina's Rapid Fire Round. Woohoo! Okay, let's
Was it
go. All right, so I'm
okay? I think
yeah. Oh, sorry, sorry.
if it's what I think it is, I'm so bad at this stuff, but I got this.
Oh
Cause I'm
goodness,
like,
no, you got this.
I
Don't
will literally
worry.
be like,
Indecisive, maybe. All right. Well, these questions, you could come up with it, whatever comes up in your head or what you feel.
okay,
You can take the time, even though it's called rapid fire round. Do your
okay,
thing. I will ask you a couple of questions there, and you can just answer along the way. And yeah, let's see where this takes us. Let's go. Last part. Gina's rapid fire round. Let's go. All right. So number one, what DAW do you use and why?
but sorry, what?
What DAW? Digital audio workstation.
Um, hmm, maybe like
Uh,
the biggest thing for me that I use is like volume. Is that like a good answer?
Oh no, like what software do you use to record
Oh,
your
what
music?
softwares? Oh, Pro Tools.
Oh, wow, nice. And what's your favorite type of like effect or plugin or whatever you
My
would
favorite
use?
effect plugin. I'm not really good with that stuff, to be honest with you, but I would probably have to say reverb.
Oh, nice. Okay. And number three, what is a sound that always brings you joy?
Sound that always brings me joy.
Anything.
My dog, Skilly, when I hear him sing,
Oh,
it always
oh,
it always makes me so happy. Like it's just like, and then you turn over and you see him like prancing.
oh. I love that. Okay, anyways, number 4. So I'm gonna ask you a couple things here. How would you rank your music creator skill sets out of 10? First one, beat making. You don't have to make it maybe, but choosing.
Beat making, I feel like I'm really good at picking beats, so I will say like 10. I feel like that's one good thing with my ears,
Yeah.
like when it comes to beats. Yeah.
Cool. I kind of agree with you on that. But anyways, lyric writing.
Lyric writing, I feel like I'm still getting better. I feel like I'm really good at like my verses. I feel like my hooks I'm still
Hmm.
perfecting. So I'm gonna give myself like a 7.5.
Hmm. Okay, and what about sound design? Like, when you have a specific concept or maybe type of sound you like, how to explain it to
Ooh.
your
Sound design, I think I'm gonna give that like an 8, 9.
nice. So you know what type of sound you want.
Yeah, I'm gonna give that like I'm
Yeah.
actually gonna give myself a 9 because I feel like I know like what sound I want, like what I want to hear and stuff like that.
Nice. And what about mixing? When you're about to be done, everything coming together.
Oh, I'm so bad at mixing. I feel like I'm just now like starting to understand mixing when I was turning this project in because I'm like, I don't know what I'm listening
Nice.
for. Like master, I understand, but
Mm.
mixing is just like I don't know what I'm listening for. I just know if I want to hear more of harmonies. So I feel like I give myself
Mm.
like a 6 with mixing because I feel like it's I need to
Okay.
understand.
Yeah. All good. And then what about for top lining? Like,
Top lining,
yeah.
hmm, I'm gonna give myself like 8.5.
Yeah. And what about music theory?
Hmm,
I'm a 0. I feel like.
music theory. Well, I should know a bit about it because like I played instruments in
Hmm.
school.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm still like a little bit rusty. So I'm gonna give myself like a 6.
Beautiful. Now, the last thing, last but not least, arranging, like arrangements.
Ooh, arrangements. I'm gonna give myself I'm gonna give myself a hmm. I'm gonna give myself an 8.
Yes. Good, good. Okay. And now, number 5, what is your reaction, like your facial
Mhm.
expression, when you know you've made some heat, like some fire in the studio? It could be in the car, it could be in your washroom. Any kind of facial expression, like, ooh.
I don't really have one. I feel like
No way.
I'm such a chill person. I wish I was like overly like expressive with like my emotions, but I just feel like I'm just like this all the time. And my mom like can't stand it because if good news comes in, like my mom will be the one screaming, and I'll be like, "Wow, that's so good." So like I feel like it's something.
That's
But if I'm with my friends, like I'll just smile and I'll be like, "Ooh, yay!"
okay. Oh my God. That's something I didn't expect, but I love it so much. It's so with your brand as well.
It's just
All right. Okay, so this question now, it made my oh wait, number 6. Okay, let's get to number 6 and then I'll get to the next one. Number 6. When do you feel 100% happy with the song you've made?
when do I feel 100% happy? I won't know until like a day or two later because
Oh.
I mean when I write my music in my washroom and I record it on my other phone. Like I make a voice note and I'll be like, okay, like this is cool enough. Like this is like good enough for me to record it. Like I feel like there's something,
Mm,
or if not, I'll just like keep it pushing. So feel like I'm really good with
mm.
that judgment. But when I know I actually have a really good song, I won't know until 2 days later because whenever I leave the studio, I never listen to my music. I give myself 24.
Oh.
Yeah, I for hours
Wow.
before I listen back to anything that I recorded. I think it's just like an ear thing for me because I'm just listening to like the mixing and all that. So I hear the same thing over and over again. So I won't know until like 2 days later.
Oh, that's actually a really good tip, I think,
Yeah.
too. Okay, yeah, number 7. So, this is a really tricky question for me. What would it be possible to teach us how to chew our liquids?
Oh my God. That's actually
Chew our liquids.
okay. So The only reason I'm
Oh dear.
laughing, do I have my water? I don't.
Uh,
Okay, I gotta
I
get
got
my
my water
liquid.
here.
I don't think.
You hold that thought right there.
I don't think I have my water in here with me.
Me too. Just give me 2 seconds.
Okay. Where is my water? I think my water's like downstairs. But I can demonstrate it because it's pretty easy. It's like
I'm back.
it's so
Okay.
funny.
Okay, so
Okay.
Okay.
so let's toast to Sad Boy as she teaches us
Toast.
how to chew our liquids.
Chew our liquids,
Okay.
baby.
So you take a sip.
Okay,
Take a
take a
Mm-hmm.
sip.
sip. You just
Mm-hmm.
like you literally chew it. Like not like, but like Gina. I think you're doing.
Are you drool? Are you drooling, Elmo? Is that water coming?
It's really weird. I can't explain it because I think it's a mental thing. Like it's almost like a baby. Like you know how like a baby would be
Uh,
like it's almost like you're feeling around like for the liquid. Like like this is good. But it's not like a. It's like a. That's kind of like
Gosh, I gotta perfect
I
this.
have to
I
hear
gotta do
that
this
because
thing.
the other day I was with my friend and she was like, mind you, she's known me since like high school, like grade 9, and she was like, Ebony, you really do chew your liquids, and I was like, oh, but it's just something. I can't explain it. I have to figure it out.
I'm not getting it.
It's gonna take you a while, Elmo. I
Yeah,
think.
I'm I'm at like
Oh
I thought it
gosh,
was.
level
I
one.
honestly thought
this
it was
ain't your
something that
thing.
everyone did
Really?
because
I know
I don't know why.
I can't like if
I
I
do
just
do
eat
the like
something.
when I eat something delicious. Like I do that yum yum yum. I make noises, but then I haven't been able to
Chew my
capture
liquid.
the chewing of the liquids yet.
Yeah, that's actually so funny. I can't not chew. Like if I don't chew it, I feel like I'm choking.
I like you, sad boy. I would never be bored. I wish you were our neighbor here. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So we're almost at the end. Thank you for teaching us how to chew our liquids. I will be doing that often now. Number 8. So, if AI technology, so if the technology world was going to take over our music creator jobs, sad, what new career path would you choose and why?
What new career path would I do outside of like music?
Yeah. If, say, AI technology took over our jobs,
I feel like
that should never happen.
I feel like I would do something with animals, or like
Yes.
I feel like I feel like I'd do something like in art, or like something.
I love
Yeah,
it.
like I feel like I'd be like maybe like a creative director.
I could see that too. But let's hope that AI technology doesn't take over our
Yeah,
jobs though.
no.
Yeah, right. All right. So last but not least, it's the last question of the whole interview now.
hmm
And part of our rapid fire round is what's next for Sad Boy and anything you want to promote to the Sonically family community.
Something I would like to promote is my project that just dropped,
Yes.
Fair Chat, which I think is some really special, especially with it being my first project because I truly do believe it's a great way for you to understand and get Sad Boy. Just like me as like a person. Um, I like what's next for me. More music. More music. I mean, I'm already working on my next project. I don't know when it's gonna come out, but I'm already working on that, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, definitely more music, and definitely it's going to get. I think it's gonna get a bit interesting because we're gonna start to see, or like everyone's gonna start to see the Sad Boy story unfold, as far as like, oh, like this is where she got Sad Boy from, and she's actually starting to talk about this person. So I'm definitely gonna like open up a bit more about that, um, and let people in just a little bit because I think right now people just think like, oh, it's lick back music, but it's like no, there was like a point where like I was like heartbroken. So letting that out and releasing that music. So yeah, there's gonna be a few things.
We're excited for that, Sad Boy, because I really think getting to hear your story is making this full circle moment for a lot of the listeners and the viewers as
Yeah.
well. Just because that contrast of your name and also the music you make and the story behind you, it just makes it that more like it just makes it more beautiful at the end of the day for all of us. And I think a lot of people can resonate with you. So thank you so much for coming and talking with us, sharing your story, because it will inspire so many people. Trust me, I know this. So many young girls, as at least, and boys. So thank you so much, and I hope you can teach Elmo how to chew his liquid soon.
No, thank you guys
Level
for
two
having
coming
me.
up.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, we really enjoyed our conversation too. And like we said, we're wishing the best for you. And please don't be a
Yes,
stranger.
No, for
Whenever you
sure.
have anything else to, talk about, anything else to
promote.
promote, or yeah, you just want to just vibe out, just let us know.
For sure.
Yeah,
We
for
should
sure.
definitely do something too, like when I'm in Vancouver.
Absolutely. Because you know what? The Korean community loves you too. The Asian communities here, and we all love you because, we all do. We all love you. So just do your thing, keep doing, making people smile and cry with you and get mad. We love it.
Do
So,
you have plans on coming out to do a show here, or any plans in your schedules
I
to
don't
just
have
be out
I
here?
don't have any plans right now, but I'm sure something will come up. Sure,
yeah,
because I've been to
Sounds good.
Vancouver a few times and I loved it, so I'm sure something will
love it.
happen.